Hello, Booktube. I'm gonna talk about four more literally white whales because um, there are many, and I love talking about the books I haven't read because they're far more than those that I have read. I've chosen four very different books, actually five very different books to have some variety. Um, because not only have I not read many of the books that I'm supposed to have read, like classics and so on, but also I like reading pretty much like there's no specific genre that I wouldn't read. So there is stuff out there for me to read until the end of times. So yeah, I'm gonna go with number one. Is probably the one I will read the soonest, and is The Red Badge of Courage by Stephen Crane. And yeah, I'm familiar with Stephen Crane's poetry, as you might have found out when I made a video on Stephen Crane's poem In the Desert on last Thursday. And this is just not, actually it's not just The Red Badge of Courage, it's a few more short stories. It's The Veteran, The Open Boat, The Monster, and The Blue Hotel. So I'm gonna read them all, and I'm gonna probably read all of them within the next month. This is probably gonna be read very soon, so it's not gonna be a literary white whale for too long. I'll catch this one. Similarly, this one, hopefully I'll be reading very soon, is Juan Rulfo from Pedro Páramo. This is magic realism. This is one of those books that I haven't read, but I have heard about so much that is part of the reason why I haven't read it. But I'm planning to read a lot of Gabriel Garcia Marquez this summer because I have to, because why not? And I thought that this serves a certain aspect, a certain like kind of style with Marquez literary style, and I thought it would be like a nice sort of easing myself into it. But also I've heard it's a great book, so yeah. If you haven't read this, I think you should definitely read it. I've heard enough recommendations from enough people to know that this is a must-read kind of book. However, once I read it, I'll have a lot more to say about it. Then there is one graphic novel. It's Mouse. I don't know much about this book other than what you can guess from the main cover. But I've been meaning to read this book for now a bit over, I don't want to say 10 years, but a lot of years, like many years. This has been around for a while. Not the book itself, but the thought of having to read it. Also, I've been trying to read more graphic novels, and before reading the main one that I haven't read, this is not here because I don't even want to talk about it. Before reading the one graphic novel that I haven't read that I should have read, that I'm not gonna tell you which one it is. You tell me, you guess on the comments. Before that, I'm gonna read this one, and that's it. That's another literary white whale. Then something completely different. It's Object-Oriented Ontology, A New Theory of Everything by Graham Harman. This is philosophy. Graham Harman is a realist. The realists are a school of philosophy that believe that there is a world out there that is independent of us and that we can know it. And that might sound to you like it's obvious. Turns out that in the world of philosophy, that's a very polemic stance to have. There is a few realists. There is Marcus Gabriel. There is Marcus Ferraris. In Spain, we have Ernesto Castro, which is the one that introduced me to all of this. And I've been meaning to read this for a while because this book, the premise of these books is that the practice of ontology has been generally done from subject. So in the sense of like ontology as the study of being, right? I mean, this is philosophy. I know, but I'm just gonna try to explain it anyways. So, ontology as the study of being tends to start on the subject. So, the being, you as a being that can be, and get into a theory of being about like what is the essence of being, and then you go into like ontic studies, which is what different kinds of beings there are, but also overall ontology focuses on being as a whole. What is it to be, right? And the prerequisite is to be a subject in most of practical ontology. The turn that Graham Harman makes is that rather than giving an 80% of the ontological work to subjects just because we are subjects, and only leave objects as sort of like semi-beings or something like that, or just like ignoring them completely in our studies of philosophy, we should actually start with objects, because before being subjects we are objects. Before having a mind and the capacity to perpetrate action, we exist as matter. And so in the sense of like, for you to be, first you have to be an object, and then you have to be a subject. Ontology has always assumed that in order for you to be, you have to be a subject, because it's only a subject that can recognize its own existence. That's one of the ways in which that you could argue that. But also because because we can. It's mainly a very humane way to look at the ontology, to think that subjects are the beginning of ontology. And I'm agreeing a priori with Graham Harman, because I have I very much agree with the realists in a good 70% of their premises when it comes to metaphysics and ontology specifically. And this is any book, especially in the area of philosophy, that dethrones the human perspective of the world, that puts us up there as above and as the beginning of everything or anything like that, is normally a view that I tend to agree with. And Graham Harman seems to be doing that, seems to be saying, before you were, there were many things that were not people, that were not beings as subjects, that were objects. Therefore, we should study being starting with those objects before even thinking about subjects. I hope that made sense to someone a little bit. I don't think this is a book that I would recommend to anyone who's not already initiated in philosophy. But if you are, and you are curious about a new school of thought, that by new I mean a few decades, that is regaining popularity, this is definitely a place to start. Graham Harman is also known for having been able to unite, make sense to philosophy, unite philosophy with other practices and other disciplines. Philosophy as a, and this is, on my opinion, philosophy is a second order discipline. That is to say that philosophy only works applied to other things, just like fire needs a fuel to burn. Philosophy needs a different subject to be applied to. Graham Harman knows that, and he's been able to speak with people from the field of architecture, from the arts, from many different disciplines that have not anything to do with philosophy, but that could, but to which he could apply that philosophy. And by starting a conversation that amalgamates outside of the discipline of philosophy, and it's not just like self-contained and isolated within it, I think that he made a really good work also, making realism a much more popular philosophical stance. So, Graham Harman. And finally, for today, the ultimate visual history of the world. This thing, which is super heavy, is a very, very beautiful history of the world. I've read a few histories of the world. At some point I will make a top of my favorite histories of the world, and probably one of the first kind of books I ever started reading were National Geographic magazines. So it was only natural for me to at some point get this book, as it seems to be the ultimate National Geographic book. Not only because it's a history of the world, but also because in being a history of the world, it's also a history of places. And it seems like it's gonna be a delightful trip, pretty much a trip through time, but also through space, since I'm definitely gonna visit every single place that appears in this book. Hopefully as I read it, I don't think so, but throughout my lifetime. So yeah, that's a book I'm very excited to read. However, I don't know when I will get to it, because I'm gonna have to send it since I'm moving out of this house very soon. Yeah, I'm making this video because I saw Guilty Feet and Steve Tonogi making a second version of the 4 literary whales. And for me, this is an endless subject. I could make 20 of these videos, not because I don't read the books that I need to read, but because I'm very young and I have a lot of time and many other very interesting priorities that also require my presence and attendance. So no guilt there, but I guess I might make a different another video of the 4 literary whales. But this is it so far. Have a nice day.